Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Now today, I just wanted to do a 2016 race season, training season recap for you guys, in case anybody is curious kind of how my 2016 season went and kind of what I was, what I was thinking during the season. I just kind of wanted to do a short, kind of a season recap video for you guys. Now I did take a couple of years off the bike from any races. I did ride, but nowhere near at the level I did this year. This spring, I decided I was going to get back into my racing and get really back into being serious training on the bike, and pretty much started up my riding late March this spring when it was still very cold and actually snowing on a few days. But that's when I really started ramping up my training, and I began riding outdoors a lot more, and I started training. And so I basically used late March and the whole month of April. I rode a lot, and I was trying to build up my fitness because I was going to do the Tour of Battenkill. I did the Tour of Battenkill this past May, and you know what? For my first race I think it was my first race in over 3 years. I did very well, and I trained really hard in April, hit that race mid-May, Tour of the Battenkill, and I did the men's Category 5 race, Masters. I did the Masters 35 plus in that race, and tell you what, it was a good race. It was a very, very hard race. My first year doing Battenkill, and for anybody who's not familiar, the Tour of Battenkill is a one-day road race down in the central part of New York, and it has about 7-8 miles of pretty rough gravel roads and gravel hills in that race. So it's a very very challenging course, and there's a lot of flats. I was completely amazed. I mean, I knew there'd be some gravel. I didn't know it'd be that hard and it'd be that much gravel. It was actually probably a little bit more than I would have liked, honestly. But the course is what it is. It's a very challenging course, and I was up for the challenge. And but I was amazed at how many people were flatting in that race. If I didn't see 30 people myself that we passed on the road or from our group or whatever, but if I didn't see 30 people on the side of the road with flat tires, I didn't see one. And unfortunately, I was late in the race. I was with the lead group, and you know what? Honestly, I feel like I was at least the second or third strongest guy in the field. From what I could see during the race, and from how we were hitting the hills, and from how we were competing on the hills, I really feel like I could have finished top 3 in that race if I could have made it to the end. I was in a lead group of like 10 guys, 55 miles into the race, on pretty much the last gravel descent in the race, pretty much the last gravel road. I flatted. I must have hit a big rock, but basically my back tire just exploded. I actually thought I broke a wheel. It was so loud. I actually thought that I snapped one of my Zip wheels. I thought the real wheels just snapped. It didn't. It was just my tire completely exploding. But needless to say, after that happened, it took me 10 minutes to catch a wheel from one of the support bikes that was out. I finally caught a spare wheel about 10 minutes later. Of course, I was well back of the lead pack at this point, and I finished, I don't know, I think I finished like 21st or 24th, something like that. I finished in the top 25. I was actually kind of surprised that I was still in the upper half of the field, but that just goes to show you how hard that race is and how many people have mechanicals. And I look back at the results afterwards online, and I was just amazed at how many people, flatted and had mechanicals in that race. It's a very tough race. If I was going to do that race again, I would certainly use a different tire choice. Again, I went into this race really not knowing exactly how challenging the gravel is. It's very challenging, and knowing that now, I would definitely do a tire change if I did Battenkill again. So that's how Battenkill went for me. And from there, I continued to train on my own here at home, and of course on the group rides for our team. For anybody who doesn't know, I race for Team Placid Planet up in Lake Placid, New York. A great team. I'm very blessed to be a part of that team. Just a great bunch of guys and girls on that team, and I have a blast riding with them. Just a great team. And so I continued doing the group rides, continued riding on my own. And the next race that I did was actually in early June. I did the Syracuse race weekend, which is obviously it's a race down in Syracuse, a weekend-long stage race in Syracuse. Good race. Starts out with a hill climb, Friday night hill climb, which is basically like a, I don't know how many miles it was, like maybe a 7-mile race. The first few miles were a neutral start, but pretty much the race is a hill climb. It's a hill climb race. Went well. I think I finished 4th on the hill climb stage. Couple guys were really mashing on that hill. I was hanging with them for about 3/4 of it, but in the last quarter of the hill, I got gapped a little bit. Finished 4th, and the time trial the next day was a time trial, and finished 5th in the time trial, which I was happy with because being 127-pound guy, I'm just not really built for time trial speed, and so to finish top 5 in the time trial, I was happy with that. And there was a criterium the same day the time trial. The time trial's in the morning. That afternoon, Saturday afternoon, there's a criterium race in one of the parks down there near Syracuse. Very fun course, probably the best criterium course I've been on. I haven't been on a lot, but I enjoyed that criterium. I was able to finish 6th in the criterium, which again for me was very good because I don't pride myself at being a great criterium racer either, but I was actually able to kind of sprint out of the pack in the last 50 meters and past like 5-6 guys to get a 6th place finish in the criterium. So that was a pretty good result for me. And the next day, of course, the last day was a road race, and it wasn't as long as I would have liked. I think it was only like a 40-mile road race. Ideally, I would have liked it to be a little longer. I mean, I'm an endurance guy. The longer the race and the more challenging, the better I think it is for me. So, but I still finished well. I think I finished 8th. I think I finished somewhere around, I think I may have even finished like 11th. But kind of had a mishap, me and 3 other guys I was with in the last few miles. And again, it's our fault because as a racer, you need to know the course. And we missed a turn. There was a police officer, again, not blaming the police officer whatsoever. He was doing his job directing traffic. It's our responsibility to know which way the course runs. Long story short, we missed a turn in the final couple of miles. So we lost like a minute taking the wrong turn. Almost got passed by a pack of guys that was behind us. And we did hold them off, but that hurt our overall finish time. But I think I finished, I think it was 11th on the road race. Maybe 8th. I can't remember exactly, but I was up near the top 10. And so a pretty good result. I ended up finishing, that was what they call an omnium race. So every race you get points, depending on how well you finish, and you get an overall point score. I ended up finishing the race 4th overall. So, I mean, I was pretty pleased with that for my first shot at that race, my first omnium kind of race. So that was pretty neat. Finished 4th there overall. And so that was the only, and then pretty much the last race I did this year. Again, I kept training hard all summer. I definitely trained harder this summer than I've ever trained in the past, and it definitely paid off for me. And so I kept training all summer, and then here recently, in September, early September, I did the Green Mountain Stage Race, which is my favorite race. I love the Green Mountain Stage Race, and that race started off with a time trial. Again, it's a Friday afternoon time trial down in the village of Warren. Beautiful course. If there's any time trial course out there built for me, this is it. It starts off with like a 2-mile climb, and pretty much the first like 2.5 miles of the course is uphill, which suits me great, and I performed very well on the first half of the time trial course. I passed my 32nd guy, and I passed my 1 minute guy. So I knew I was making up a lot of time on the hill. Was really feeling good, riding good. Of course, hit the last half of the course, which is more of a flat, false flat, kind of with a couple downhill sections. And I actually got repassed by my 30-second guy, and then we just kind of jockeyed back and forth to the finish line. But I certainly lost some time on the last half of that time trial course. Ended up finishing like 45 seconds behind the overall race leader after the first day, which I was pretty happy with, honestly, because again, I'm not a time trial guy, and even though that time trial suits me to be within a minute of the lead after the time trial, I was pretty happy with, honestly, because it's a pretty competitive field there at Green Mountain. A lot of good guys show up there for that race. So I was happy with I think I finished 16th overall in the time trial, but I wasn't so much concerned about placing as I was, time behind the leader, because this was a stage race and it's an accumulated timed race. So that was a pretty decent finish for me. Was happy with that. Day 2 was a circuit race. I think it was like a 39 or 40 mile circuit race, couple of laps around a particular course. There was some small rolling hills in there. There was some KOM points on that course. I was only interested in finishing with the pack. I pretty much knew that I wasn't going to have any chance of winning any kind of a pack finish sprint. Definitely not a sprinter. So my only goal for stage 2 was to conserve as much energy as I could by riding in the pack and finish with the pack and not lose any time, which I was able to do. Finished, I think it was 33rd on the stage, but again, finished with the lead pack, lost no time on the race lead, so I was perfectly happy with race number 2. Didn't have to burn a whole lot of matches on that ride, maybe a couple, but pretty much just sat in the pack and rode around for the 40 miles. Got the pack finished, so that put me still about 45 seconds behind the race lead after the second stage. So I was pretty happy going into stage 3, which was going to be my favorite stage. It's the stage 3 summit finish on top of Appalachian Gap, which is an extremely challenging road race over there in Vermont in the Green Mountains, and that's a 64-mile road race, and there is about 6,500 feet of climbing during the stage with 2 major climbs. One being the first one was Middlebury Gap. We hit that about 30 miles into the race, about halfway in the race. We hit Middlebury Gap. I was able to, again, leading up to Middlebury, my only mission was to just simply stay in the pack and hit the base of that climb with the lead and try to see if I could stay with any guys going off the front over Middlebury, so I could not lose contact with anybody making a break on Middlebury. I ended up being in the top 3 guys over Middlebury. Was actually kind of jostling back and forth with the guy that was in the King of the Mountains jersey on that race, but I could have fought him tooth and nail for those points, but I really had no interest in those. I was thinking of the stage win overall, and also just trying to increase time on the lead, get some time back off the leader. So I pretty much I hit that hill hard, but I let the guy in the KOM, I let him take those points. I didn't fight him for them, and he was by himself, so I pretty much knew he didn't have a chance of staying away from us. So once I let him go, I basically just sat up, crested Middlebury, and used the descent, because I'm not a very good descender either. And I thought, okay, the guy leading the race is over the hill. He's going to come back to us once we repack up. And I was basically using the descent to kind of get, to not get dropped, myself. So I was still descending pretty hard, but I was staying at a manageable level, and I basically just kind of coasted on the descent. And pretty much when we hit the base of the descent, the lead group reformed. There was probably, maybe 20, 30 of us that reformed up into the pack, and then we got bridged back up by another group later on down the road. So we ended up kind of repacking up down the road, and of course then we hit what they call Baby Gap. It's basically a miniature version of that gap. It's not a very steep climb, but it's long. It's a long one, and it can kind of separate the field a little bit. And we had there was about 5 guys that went off the front about a mile before Baby Gap. And, you know, I wanted to go with that move, honestly, but I was kind of jostled back into the pack a ways, and I wasn't able to get up there with the center line rule. I was basically stuck in the pack, and I wasn't able to follow that move. And then pretty much on Baby Gap, I was, you know, at that point, I'm trying to work my way up to the front of the pack, you know, so I can go with any moves. And sure enough, going up Baby Gap, a couple of guys went off the front, trying to bridge to that group of 5 guys that went off the front earlier that had now gotten like a minute lead on us. So I knew this was a very crucial moment in the race. I went with those 2 guys, and I pretty much, honestly, those guys pulled me all the way up to the race lead. I didn't do any turns. I was actually smoked at that point. Trying to get out of the saddle, my hamstrings and my calf muscles were just completely seizing up on me and cramping, and I couldn't even ride out of the saddle. That's how hurting my legs were. But I stayed in those guys' wheels. I dug deep, stayed in their wheels, and those guys basically made that bridge for us. We bridged like the minute gap up to those guys, and so now we were hitting the base of Appalachian Gap with a group of like 8 guys. And at that point, I started to recover a little bit, felt like I had some more to give, put a dig in at pretty much the base of Appalachian Gap. Guys couldn't follow me, and I ended up winning the stage by about by 9 seconds. The guy that was in the KOM lead, he finished with another guy 9 seconds back of me, and there was some guys a little bit further back. But long story short, after stage 3, I moved all the way up to 4th overall in the race, which was great. And I mean, I can't remember exactly how. I can't remember exactly how far I was off the race lead, but I was far enough off the lead where I knew I didn't have a chance to win unless some guys got dropped in the criterium, which I pretty much knew wasn't going to happen. At that point, I was just thinking, all right, finish well in the criterium with the lead pack and hold on to 4th. Day 4 is the Burlington Downtown Criterium. Again, I'm not a great criterium racer, and this is a very challenging criterium course. Just a lot of technical corners and turns, and it's a fast-paced criterium. And I won't lie to you, I mean, I had to dig really deep just to hang on to the pack in that criterium. I was able to do that. I finished with the lead pack in the criterium. Apparently, the guy that was 3rd overall got dropped and didn't finish with the lead pack, so I was actually able to move up 1 position to 3rd overall. So I was able to finish 3rd overall podium at Green Mountain, and I got the stage 3 win on App Gap. So that completely made my season, and I was thrilled with that result. My best result so far on the bike. So I'm very encouraged going into 2017, and I'm continuing to train. And but I just want to kind of do a little kind of a season recap video for you guys in case anybody's kind of interested. How my 2016 season went. That's how it went. Very pleased with it. And, now, of course, I'm making goals and working on goals for 2017. So, and I'll post a video later on for you guys, kind of sharing my thoughts and what my goals are for next season. So, but again, guys, I appreciate all the support on the channel. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys right back here in the next video.